You said it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Whatever. As for uploading this, obviously since it's going to be a little bit late, I probably won't get around to it until tomorrow or Monday. Doing this, obviously, looks like we're up.
Oops.
Cool. So yeah, I'll let you get everything set up on your end as far as audio to make sure you're good and you can hear me. And then...
I've got an ad.
Yep, that's what I heard. Lots of ads. And I don't even get paid for them.
Okay.
I don't know what's up with that. Is it a good ad? A lot of people say it's movies.
No.
Hey, Toxic. 2 a.m. Well, I guess it is going into the weekend, so... yeah, totally understand why you can't watch when it's 2 a.m. So, yes, go to bed. It's almost the weekend. But thanks for stopping in anyway. So, hey, Vince, I should point out that I sent Toxic I sent Toxic a free ebook to say thanks for being one of my first followers. So he has he has an ebook, I should mention.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but obviously it's 2 a.m. there, so good night. But yeah, I mean, stay as long as you can, but I definitely don't want to keep you awake. So now that we're officially starting, I figure I will go ahead while I take a look at my city and see what's going on. Introduce Vince Font here up in the pointing to the left side. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. So I'm going to let Vince introduce himself really quick while I fix my nightmare of a road grid down here. So Vince, go ahead and let everyone know what you're all about.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Vince Font. The reason that I'm here today is because I am the publisher of Vaughn Turkington's book, End of the Past, of the Disparia book series. The name of my publishing company is Glass Spider Publishing. I founded the company in 2016, January 2016, mostly as a way to help underrepresented authors get their books out there into publication. I myself, as a writer, had a lot of experience doing the self-publishing, and I learned a lot by making a lot of mistakes. And unfortunately, I see a lot of self-published authors making a lot of mistakes. Now I had a lot of experience, and I had a lot of contacts that could help me sort of create the best overall books that people wanted to create. My wife, Jane, owns an art gallery, and because of that, we know a lot of artists. So we have artists. We started it out sort of with the idea of having a lot of artists available to create, to help create book covers, things like that. Since I'm an editor as well as a writer, I thought, well, I'll edit the books. She'll handle the interior and exterior design of the physical books and the ebooks, and we'll just go from there. We got so busy, though, with so many requests, that I eventually had to reach out to some of the professional editors that I had worked with in the past, that I had worked for, as a writer, and they were more than willing to help out. I think that the goal of most editors is to edit books, especially fiction books. Whereas, the editors that I worked with in the past edited a lot of online content, boring stuff like that. And
not all of it's boring. I mean, I did that for a while.
Yeah, and me too. And I tried not to make mine boring.
No, it was kind of dreadful. You can only I'll let you finish. I don't want to interrupt here, but you can only write about tree trimming services so many times before you can't. Okay, right? I mean, hey, Pika, what's going on? So Pika lives in St. George, I should just point out, so it's not 2 a.m. where he lives.
Nice.
But yeah, thanks for stopping by, even for a short time. Obviously, I guess that way. That's Vince. He was just introducing himself, but I was saying that you can actually run out of things to say. There are so many ways you can describe tree trimming services before you actually pull your hair out. There literally is an end to things you can say. So Yeah, I know what you mean about online writing. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but continue on.
Well, to touch on that a little bit, because it's so fascinating.
Yes,
the
tree trimming is so fast. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
I wrote, I've been a professional freelance writer for over 10 years. And I wrote so much content about so many different things that I thought that I would be a really good contestant for some kind of a game show, like Who Wants to be a Millionaire. But I found that a lot of the information that I wrote about sort of went in one ear and out the other as soon as I wrote about it. You talked about your tree trimming services. I remember I had to write 100 short articles about prostate health. And I'm no doctor, but
okay.
I could probably pass a few tests.
Well, depending on the country, you could probably officially practice now, I would imagine. Maybe
I'm in the wrong line of work.
Yeah, or the wrong country.
But I don't know if that's desirable work.
Yeah.
Leave it to the people who are born to do that. Anyway, so we launched Glass Spider Publishing in 2016, and as I said, we got so busy that I started hiring other editors that I'd worked with, and now we've got a nice small team of people. I still edit from time to time, but for the most part, my main focus is on sort of trying to grow the business. We've got a lot of authors who are local to Utah, to northern Utah, but we published an author who lives in Oregon. The connection there, of course, was that she grew up in Ogden, Utah, and was very familiar with the online publications and saw an article about us. However, I just got off the phone today with one of our newest authors, who is somebody who lives in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool.
Who I connected with her through Twitter.
Really?
And so we're sort of slowly expanding out. And there's actually another book that we've been working on for quite some time that's back east a ways, the author.
Yeah.
So we're kind of slowly growing our footprint. We have a lot of really good connections with local independent bookstores.
Yeah. I just want to put a plug out. Oh, hey, Toxic. Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it leaving early if you're leaving at 2 a.m. So, thanks for stopping by even for a minute. I appreciate it. I will be doing Kerbal streams next week, so just check Twitter if you're going to be around at all for those. But thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend. It is my birthday weekend, so I won't be on. But enjoy your weekend. I appreciate it. See you later. So Vince, back to you. Just Toxic was heading out, so he's been following the stream probably almost longer than anyone. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, just to catch everybody up, around about January, February, March of 2016, we were contacted by some writer named Vaughn Turkey. And
sketchy at best.
And yours was one of the first books that we contracted to publish, and and it's been a fun thing.
What I should point out that it was actually kind of cool because I went the self-publishing route first as well back in 2008 or 9ish when I was finishing up college. I didn't get out of that because I wanted to. I got out of that because of lots of issues that had nothing to do with me. I was, we're not going to get into it here because, we can do that at another time, but I was the victim of bank fraud and identity theft, so I had to close down my self-publishing business. But when I finally found Glass Spider, it was cool. You mentioned that I was one of the first people you worked with. It's been fun to, I guess, sort of like troubleshoot things with you. I know that sounds sort of weird to say, dealing with issues is fun, but as you've been trying to figure out the way things work, it's been fun to be there on the ground floor to sort of, help you sort of figure out the way things work and coordinate with you. I think it's helped the relationship with the book and just, in general. I think that's been really sort of exciting to do, because I feel like I'm sort of on the publishing side, even though I'm not, because I get so much of that from you.
Right, yeah, and with every author that we bring on, I learn something new. The original publishing contract was very, very slim, and I remember when we were you and I were going back and forth, you made a lot of suggestions for improvement.
Yeah,
or
specifically
things
in the contract.
things that you wanted to see covered, and things that I thought, oh, okay, well, let's add that in. So we're, like I said, with every new contact, we are, it's a constant learning process.
Well, I think it's time I put a shameless plug for Linda. Nobody's really met her on stream, but most of the people who follow me, know that she's my wife. She was the one who was very much make sure everything's good on the contract. So definitely have to thank her for that. She was the one that was super hardcore on that. So Pika has a question. Let's see. So how is it approaching a publisher to support your book? Is it a lengthy process? Well, I will give you my take first, and then I'll let Vince sort of explain that, because I should point out that the service that Glass Spider provides is so vastly different than sort of the big house publishers. The experience of that is completely different. Yeah. But to answer that in a really quick sentence, I contacted you, what was it, January of 2016?
Right.
Into the past. So the actual full book here, the paper book, was finished and on shelves by. Do we have the date in there by chance? Actually, let me look and see. We probably do, don't we?
I want to say that it was. I can find out very easily.
Okay, well, it was basically like September 15th. So Pika,
right.
Depending on the route you go, it just sort of worked out. I met with Vince right after. I had a list of questions that I wanted to know before I actually went to commit. So I went up to Ogden to meet with him. We sat for probably, an hour-ish in the gallery. Right. We went through the questions. Then I went back and looked at those and thought about all those, everything from, royalties to how the editing would work to the time periods. And he basically gave me almost like a light version of the contract, just to say, hey, this is what it's going to be like if you actually join with us. So I went and looked at that, and from there, honestly, the publishing process was not the long one. The long process was actually doing the editing and finishing the writing. It's remarkable. I'm not going to say it's simple, because obviously it's not simple to write a book, but he's made it so that the process is very streamlined and it's easy to do. You don't need to know what you're doing to do it. You sort of learn as you go. So it was a really quick, I'd say 9-month process for me personally. But Vince, if you want to sort of give your take on the process of publishing with you versus, how long it might take with a bigger I don't want to say bigger. I want to say a corporate publisher as opposed to, one who caters to the writer.
Right.
Hopefully I don't mean to interrupt, but hopefully that answers your question, Pika, at least from my perspective. Because, about 9 months, and the biggest hurdle was editing and writing. So anyway, Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. The most time-consuming part of getting a book published is the editing process. You were smart enough and savvy enough to understand that even though you wrote the book and you took your time writing the book, and you had other people read your book and tell you what they thought of it, and went over it 1,000 times yourself, that there's no real substitute for a professional edit from a dispassionate third party and somebody who's getting paid to edit. If somebody's getting paid to edit, they're going to do a good job.
Yeah.
If you ask your nephew to come over and mow your lawn for free, he's not going to do as good a job as somebody that you pay $35 a week to come and do.
Exactly.
Because they are doing it for the money. They want your repeat business. And so they're going to do a really good job. And they're professionals. Editing is different than lawn care. I think
marginally.
We're back to the lawn care thing, aren't we?
Yeah, but you trim words, so it's
yeah.
I guess it's literary lawn care.
Exactly. We're different from obviously traditional corporate publishers and even smaller independent publishers in that we work a lot quicker.
Yeah, exactly. The turnaround time was very quick, as I mentioned, just like 9 months from first meeting to book out. So it is a very quick turnaround time.
Right. I like to tell people that what we do is everything that you can do via self-publishing, except that you have professionals with experience who've done it many, many times in the past.
Yeah.
who are handling that for you. A lot of times, what we do a lot of times what you'll get when you if you're lucky enough to sign with a major publisher, is right, and that's we can talk for an hour about that, because I've had experience in that area. You will, with a traditional publisher, you'll sign the rights to your book away for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to own the book for 10 years. You're going to earn about 10 cents on every dollar
maybe
that the book earns, maybe.
Yeah.
And you're also in charge of your own marketing.
Mm-hmm.
For the unless you're a celebrity, a book
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, a book publisher is not going to fly you to London or New York or even Ohio to do a book signing. You're going to have to do all that yourself. And there's a lot of prestige with getting published with a name publisher, but there's not a lot. There's a total loss of control.
Exactly, and I want to interrupt you there and say that. So for people who just say write a book, right? Like, oh, I want to write a book about say the history of some guy in the Civil War or something. The books are more or less self-contained entities, and signing away the rights is okay because it's not something you created in the sense that you're not making anything up. You don't need control over that because you're just, say giving a history, or even if you're doing like just some general fiction book, yes, you create it, but you don't necessarily need, the rights to it in a detailed sense, because once you finish with it, you ship it off, and then it just sort of lives in bookland where, people can read it or they won't read it, but you're essentially done. But with what I've been doing, where I have a very interactive approach to it, where I have a website and I'm allowing people to contribute. For example, he's not on right now because it's 2 a.m., The White Guardian. I've been helping him beta test some mods for Kerbal Space Program. I don't remember exactly how we got together, but in turn, he named a moon in his mod pack after the book series. So I have a moon called Disparia in Kerbal Space Program. So that type of freedom to sort of create what you need. Oh, cat's getting in. Hold on. Just a sec.
For the record, I love cats. I love cats. I love my cat. I've never met your cat, Vaughn. I'm sure it's okay, but it's probably not as cool as mine.
Okay, apparently cats can open doors now. Didn't know that. Hey, Pika. Let's see. Thanks for answering. Got to go to a wedding now. Hopefully, actually, it's a good day for a wedding. Nice weather and stuff. Yeah. Like I said, I will be uploading this to YouTube, so if there's anything you're curious about, go ahead and check it out later. We will be talking more, so if you're curious about anything, go ahead and check that out. I will also have links in the description, but I appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the wedding and your weekend, Pika. We will see you later.
Thanks for the question.
Yes, exactly. But back to what I was saying about freedom. I'm having people contribute, and I'm building something that doesn't just exist in the book. It exists all over the place, in games, on my website, and eventually comics. When you go through a big publisher and you sign the rights away, you don't have the option to do that. So that's why something like this fits so well. With a big publisher, you're sort of tied into what they want you to do, or they say you can do. And if they have the rights, for example, the Moon Disparia, I couldn't have that. That's not something that I would have control over.
Right. And of course, there's the all-important question of royalties.
Yes.
Like I said,
them monies.
The 10% that you get is not a good deal.
Yeah.
Especially if you discover after a couple of years of your 10-year contract that you wish you could just take it on yourself so you can earn
earn more
of the sales. And so where we're different in Glass Spider Publishing is that as you know, we take just 10% and give the author 90%, and that 10% really just covers the time that it takes me to run reports and cut checks.
All the fun stuff that you love so much, right?
Exactly, and to put it back into the business, really. I spend money running ads and things like that. So um, that's always a good thing to put that back in there. And also the fact that, well, you touched on it before, that you retain full rights to your book.
Exactly.
So that if in the event that your book was to attract the attention of a major publisher or a larger publisher who wanted to take you on, all you have to say is, send me an email and say, hey, Vince, I want to go.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, okay, that's awesome. Because, one of my biggest dreams would be for one of my authors to get picked up by a major publisher, because that would be a major feather in our cap.
Exactly.
If you got tied into a contract with another publisher for a period of 5 to 10 years, you wouldn't be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
Even I don't really know if the major publishers would necessarily try to buy out a contract or not, but it would probably, your chances of that happening would probably be pretty slim.
Yeah.
So and there are a lot of people who are self-publishing and who are doing pretty well.
Yeah, but pretty well is different than, taking off.
Right. I just felt that sort of giving authors a publishing imprint that's growing and that has a big selection, a growing selection of books, would be better than sort of going it alone.
Yeah.
And that's, all of our authors support each other.
Yeah, because I should mention that I get emails, included on group emails for everyone that, creating a new line here, that everyone who's been published through you, we're always on emails about opportunities that are coming up or what other people are doing. So it's, even though we don't live near each other, it's, I'd say, a much more tight-knit community than you would find any other way, especially with self-publishing, because then you'd have to be forging your own contacts. So it's, it does provide a very sort of tight-knit opportunity. Yeah,
just like the, I don't know if you saw the email today that our author, B.A. Simmons, he's decided to sort of head up getting a table at ComicCon in Salt Lake City. Yeah,
I actually just saw that just before we started.
And I mean, I'd wanted to do that last year, but we just started out with the company a little bit, too late in the year to sort of pick up steam for that. And before I knew it, suddenly now it's here again. And I looked at my schedule of all the things that I have going on, and I said, well, I don't think that I'm going to be able to set this up. I've never been to Comic-Con, and I don't really understand kind of the differences between a vendor table versus a dealer table versus who can...
So you mean you haven't gone cosplaying there as your favorite superhero, wearing some tight underwear that you dyed in the bathtub?
Yeah, no, I have too much respect for my fellow man to do that to anybody. And so he, he's really eager to help out with that. So I said, by all means, if you want to do it, and I'll obviously pitch in for the costs.
Yeah.
But I simply didn't have enough manpower or person power to
sort of tackle it on your own. Yeah.
Yeah, and. So that's just another example of the sort of family-ish atmosphere, and we've got that also in the with our editors and the people who work for us. Everybody, is sort of connected in some way. They have worked with each other in the past, and I really like that.
Yeah, since we're on the subject of Comic-Con, one of the things that I want to talk about that I actually have the Disparia Books Patreon account or page. One of the things that I'm working towards with donations is getting the Like a Brick comics back out there. Eventually, the goal would be to get the Like a Brick comics, which I'll explain a little bit more about in just a minute, published, not just digitally, but actually print something. The format specifically, I'm not too concerned about, like visually how it looks. I'm sort of flexible with that, but... to get that back out there on a regular basis. So the comics themselves, they're a series that follow a character who doesn't appear in the books, but it takes place in the book world on the continent of Atla, where the first book actually starts. And she's an inventor that lives alone with her pet owl who can't fly. His name's Brick. Her whole goal in life is to build a flying machine. And she pretty much is the most optimistic person in the world, even when most of her designs end up catching on fire and sending her in a burning fireball towards a mountainside. It's an awesome series that I started on my own back when I did my first book, but I had to put aside after all the fraud and everything just sort of, took all the momentum out of the book series. But I want to resurrect that because everyone loved that, and being able to take something like that to ComicCon would be a really cool experience. To tie that into the book series and just to have a presence at ComicCon. So something like that would be, I'm looking forward to, and I hope that in the near future we can get more support, Patreon supporters, so that that can actually come to life. Because the only thing that I'm waiting on is, help through Patreon for some funding, some backers for that. Because as far as actually producing those, they're pretty much written and ready to go. So, I'm hoping in the near future that, even next year we could have some sort of presence with that at Comic-Con.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then, finally I'll get to be able to go.
Yeah.
I'll say you man the table for an hour or for a day, and I'll be back.
Yeah, exactly. So then we'd have a real good excuse to go, as opposed to just because we like to wear red underwear.
Exactly.
Yes. So I know you have some questions, but before you do that, I should probably just sort of explain what I'm doing here, because this whole time I've been clicking away building. So
yeah, please do.
Okay, so this tonight, this Ask Me Anything, this sort of special episode with Vince is a special episode of my weekly series called Building FreePort, which is a weekly series where I build Freeport City from the first book. So this is where the first book takes place in the game City Skylines. And as usual, I say the word cities many times. But it's a weekly series every Tuesday. I should mention that my plan was to sort of build like a 1-to-1 scale of the whole of Freeport City. I found the game and I decided to do the series pretty much like within a week, so I had no experience with the game. So I'm going to say I had to take a few liberties to create Freeport, because obviously the way the game requires you to play is different than, the book world itself. But despite that, it's still a remarkably accurate representation and recreation. And I should say that it's an ongoing thing. You can see there's a lot of green space around. I'm still building it. But that's what I've been doing each week, is just sort of chatting with everyone and trying to slowly create the city from the book. And it's actually coming out really well. So I'm going to just, while you're talking, I'm going to start doing a little tour. But the first thing I want to point out is this is the neighborhood where it all starts. This right here, it's not built yet, by the way. Nobody's built on that lot. This is where the main character's house is, this little plot of land. And the book opens near a cemetery, and this is actually the cemetery that the book opens at on the seashore there. And in a little while, I will do sort of a name tour of a few specific places. But that's basically the gist of it, is that I'm trying to create a place for my book in City Skylines. And the cool thing about that is that people will actually be able to go and download this map when I upload it. I want to get a little bit further in, but if you want to download it, I'm going to put it on the Steam Workshop, so you'll be able to play around with the same location that the book takes place in. So it's a really cool way to sort of bridge games and books together and help bring it to life in a way that I couldn't any other way.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of cool that you're doing this, because it really sort of beats traditional marketing.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about press releases and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can never discount something like print or TV or radio ads, even though people get annoyed with them and they're not what they used to be. You can't ever discount that.
Right, but I think that one of the biggest challenges, especially today, because there are so many authors out there.
Yeah.
Whether they're self-published or whether they're with a smaller or large publisher, that it's hard to get through all the noise to get your book heard about. And doing things like this is one of the ways that you can do that.
Yeah, and what's nice is that you can reach people pretty much anywhere in the world. You're not limited. Like, let's say I wanted to, advertise my book here in Utah. Well, I mean, if I went magazine, newspaper, or TV, I mean, yes, people have access to that online, but doing this, it immediately reaches people all over the world as opposed to having to wait for a news broadcast or something in the print to run through. So you really open up the opportunity to reach more people really quickly.
Exactly. And I'm just curious to know if you know or have any other ideas that you're working on for marketing yourself.
Well, honestly,
creative ideas.
Yes, creative. Honestly, continuing to grow this channel. I just recently created a Twitter account because I was holding off.
Yeah.
I was super against that because I don't like the idea of having to be on every single social media platform all the time to the point where you have no time for anything else. But I just realized how handy that would be. So I just recently created that. And with that, I want to just sort of continue to grow the channel and really push for Patreon support so that I can get the comics out there, because I know that with a combined sort of offensive with Twitch and then something like ComicCon, it's going to cover pretty much every possible avenue and base for trying to reach people with the book.
Right. And I don't know that I know what Patreon is, but I don't know that a lot of people know what Patreon is, so maybe you should explain what that is.
So, for those of you who don't know, Patreon is a lot like Kickstarter or GoFundMe, where, but the difference with this one is that it's specifically driven towards creative people to produce work. Where something like Kickstarter, if you're a backer, what you do is you put money into a pot and say, I want this project. Our goal is X 100,000 million, whatever dollars, and you put that in there to let the people do whatever they need. And at the end of the day, you might or might not get anything. But you sort of work towards getting that out there. But with Patreon, it's a month. There are brackets you can establish for a monthly payment, which is basically the payment goes towards, you set sort of what the payment goes towards. Each creator sort of controls what those go towards. But the contributors will pay a monthly fee, and in return, they get whatever services or products the creator gives them in that price bracket, and it allows the creator to continue making the product or products that they do, having a steady source of income for that. And it also provides fans with an opportunity to know that their work or that what they like is going to continue. So, if you say, I really like this comic or this show or this book or this whatever, so I'm going to contribute at the $5 a month level, you know that something you love is going to continue. And on the creator side, there's security and stability there that allows you to do more than you could on your own. So that's sort of what Patreon allows. And that's why I think it's a really good resource to help bring the Like a Brick comics back.
Yeah. So I guess I should ask you, when did you start writing? In your life?
Okay, well, I guess that's sort of a long story. I'll try not to take the whole time up with that one. But I think you can sort of see where it would begin. It's not going to be too surprising when I tell you where it all began. So when I was really, really young, I want to say 10 and under, obviously, I would go play at my friend's house just up the street. And, I had a few friends that lived right around here, and they had an older brother who got us into playing Dungeons and Dragons. This is back in the 90s. And obviously we were really young and it was sort of hard to grasp everything. But we started playing Dungeons and Dragons when we were really young and, loving that because I've always been the type of person to use my imagination and, enjoy doing something like that. Well, fast forward a few years later, and instead of just playing it, I started having all these ideas. I kept thinking, well, I like these campaigns or these stories or these missions that we're doing, but I have my own ideas. I have all these stories that are swirling in my head, so let me sort of do it. So I would actually occasionally play the DM, the Dungeon Master, and come up with my own stories that I wanted to get out of my head. And during elementary and junior high, I would turn some of these stories into the stories that I had to do, for school assignments. But that's about as far as it took me. It wasn't until the beginning of high school that I really started turning those stories into actual Word documents, as opposed to just keeping them in the game world. And the reason for that is that as we got older and things sort of took our focus off of Dungeons and Dragons, I almost had no outlet for my creativity. So I needed to do something, and that's when I started writing. And I enjoyed reading a lot. I remember when I was really young, my parents giving me the Lord of the Rings series to start. That really sort of got me hooked on reading. So I started doing that with no real intentions to do anything more than just pull the stories out of my head that were clogging up my brain. So I started doing that all through high school. I started what became my first book during that time, but at that point I had no desire or intention of publishing. It wasn't until I started college, I was actually going in for, I was going to major in computer graphics and do 3D modeling, that a neighbor who was a writer, I don't even know how, honestly, found some of my work. I don't know if my mom gave it to him or what, but it's one of those just freak things where he happened to get one of my stories and he's like, you know what? This is pretty good. Have you thought about doing this more? And I was like, well, no, I really haven't. After meeting with him and talking to him for probably half a year, just on and off, I decided to switch my major to English and creative writing, and I really sort of sat down and started working on that. At that point, I really didn't know whether I would end up writing a book or not, but I wanted to do it, so I kept working on that. And by the time I graduated from college, I started my own little self-publishing company to get my book out there. Through his help mentoring me and through the classes at school and everything, I learned a lot over the years that I was at school, and just sort of found that through trial and error and decided to go that route. So that's, I guess, the quick version of how I got started. It was sort of a fluke that my neighbor happened to be a writer and got a hold of some of my stuff and said, you should consider this. And I considered it. And here we are, many years later, where I'm now building cities for my book in a game.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I don't think I'd ever asked you that question before, so I wanted to know for myself.
Yeah. So it's sort of a weird story. It started with Dungeons and Dragons, then it progressed with a neighbor being a publisher, and then I started my own self-publishing company, which, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, totally wouldn't recommend. A lot of work, not a lot of payoff.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
When I started Glass Spider Publishing, I had other irons in the fire. I was a freelance writer, and we got so busy that I sort of had to stop doing that, and which is fine. I mean, I thought it was awesome, but in particular, I just stopped writing for somebody that I've been writing for over almost 10 full years.
Yeah.
And it's as you probably know, it's the hardest thing in the world to say, no, I can't do that assignment because I have other things to do. Because when you take the plunge, I was a professional technical writer for Citigroup for quite a few years, and I had the opportunity to go freelance, but there was no security in it. But of course, I realized that there was no security in the corporate world either.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, it was during a period of time where every day that I'd come to work, there'd be a new section of the building that had been laid off overnight.
Oh, God.
And
that's reassuring and comforting.
Yeah, even though my job is still there, and I didn't really have to worry about it, I did, and I started thinking about my options, and I thought, well, maybe I should just do this myself. And in that process, when you leave a quote unquote secure job to freelance, you don't know if you're going to make how much money you're going to make next month. You're going to make something, but you don't know how much you're going to make, and so therefore you never say no to work. I remember one month I must have worked 80-hour weeks.
Well, I always get emails from you on Sunday, so I have a feeling you're still burning the old weekend oil.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll get emails from me at like 5:30 in the morning. Or
yeah, that's why I turn my phone off, by the way. That's why it's nice that phones have an off button.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, it's I really like what I do, and it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it sometimes doesn't feel like a job.
Well, that's how you know you're doing the right thing.
I guess so, yeah.
But I do want to mention something here on the topic, because I know a lot of people, whenever you talk about getting published, like the first thing anyone talks about is, at least, in my experience, is either they say, did you self-publish, or should I self-publish, or, something like that. And, I want your opinion on it too, but, the first thing that I want to say is that if you like to write, don't self-publish. Because if you self-publish, you won't be doing any writing. You'll be doing everything else. So unless you just want to go straight digital and you just post, to a blog, and I mean, even then, if you want to write, I would say don't self-publish, because you won't be able to write if you try and, just strictly do it all on your own.
That's a really good. I think I might want to hire you as as a pitch man.
Yeah, there you go.
Because that really isn't anything that I've ever really thought too much about, because ever since I started self-publishing, I actually enjoyed the process of figuring out how to do the interior design.
And keep in mind that I'm not saying
that
that's inherently bad doing that stuff. Yeah. I'm just, I'm definitely not saying that because it's, rewarding and it's fun. I'm just saying, it's not inherently bad in any way. So go ahead and continue.
No, yeah, I know a lot of writers who don't want to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the clients that we're publishing said to me, I don't have time to do anything but write. I just want to write. I want you to handle the publishing. I want you to handle the marketing. I want somebody to handle my social media accounts.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And which obviously is something we do. But yeah, there's not a lot of people who are necessarily hands-on in that area.
And it takes certain skills that you might not have if you consider yourself just a writer. To intuitively know how to market yourself, to know how to create an engaging cover, to know what the proper layout dimension should be to appeal to the most people, or to have it work in harmony with your subject matter. Not a lot of people know that, Yeah. Unless you specifically go to school for that.
Right. And that's another thing I tell a lot of our authors is, I will say, you're finished writing the book, and now we're going to publish it. And we're going to do a fair amount of marketing for you also, but that you have to be constantly marketing yourself.
Yeah.
And to take the mindset that you're going to be marketing this book for the rest of your life. It's not ever going to reach an ending point, because there's always going to be another reader out there.
Yeah, well,
10,000.
Unless, some sort of Twilight Zone-y nuclear apocalypse. But, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Hopefully the books will be spared so the survivors can read. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, we could hope for that. So really quick, I want to mention what I'm doing here is... So let me describe the game just a little bit. So ideally, when you start this game, the goal is to sort of start from... Let me see if I can... Where are my milestones? I don't even have these turned on. That's why I don't even know where the milestones are. No, that's my budget. Yeah, that's how much I still don't know about this game. But anyway, the idea is to start with like one little highway connection and just take it from there and slowly build, a tiny little hamlet, then a city, then a town, or, all the way up to a metropolis. So that's sort of the goal of the game. But since I wasn't doing this to play the game, I was doing it to create Freeport, I just jumped in and... Okay, let me even show you here. You see these tiles? You only start with, I think, like 2 or 4 tiles, and you have to actually purchase them, as the mayor, right? And you sort of expand as you go. and that's, your city grows slowly. Well, since I just sort of used the cheats and designed the whole layout and then started filling it in, the problem I'm having here is that the city is bigger than it can actually grow. You'll see the population down here is 64,000. So you'll notice these little buildings with the crosses over them. Those are abandoned buildings because the city is too big for how fast it can grow. I basically didn't realize that I would need to actually grow the city slowly. I just said, no, let's just jump in and do everything. So the result of that is that everyone's real unhappy with me as a mayor. So it's not quite like this in the book where everyone hates the town and they want to leave, but I'm basically going around and destroying the abandoned buildings because they reduce the value of the land and buildings around them. But even though the population is growing, people keep moving out because there just aren't enough jobs or demand for them. So half the time I spend in these episodes, I'm literally just destroying buildings as fast as people can move out. So yeah, I'm a real terrible mayor in this. It's not nearly this bad in the actual book. Things are, well, at least the first half, no spoilers. Things are much better in the book than they are here. So that's why I'm just sort of hunting around for all these abandoned buildings because, people are real unhappy.
So I think I should ask, how is this different, or is it similar to something like SimCity? Or am I way off?
No, you're actually pretty close. So SimCity was really, really good back in the 90s and the noughties. The most recent one that came out a few years ago was like a complete disaster. They had an all-online requirement at first, and there were bugs and glitches. But the gist of this is that it's a lot more focused on the minutia, where SimCity is sort of a... they both cover full cities, but SimCity is more about just sort of broadly watching over a city, whereas this is, a lot about traffic management and keeping, individual populations happy and making sure they're taken care of. So it's very much like SimCity, but I want to say there's a lot more micromanaging required, if that makes sense. And one of the cool things you can do about it, or do about it, because I can speak goodly, one of the cool things you can do, let me pause it here, is you'll notice that the terrain here mimics what's in the book. The hills in the forest behind Vaughn's house is that you can actually go in and... actually, I might as well show you really quick. Let me just save the game anyway. You can actually go in and sort of terraform and landscape to create your own custom maps so that the terrain and everything is exactly as you want it. And that's why I had to pick this. Did I not quit? Oh. Okay, I can computer today. This basically gave me a paintbrush to draw the landscape, to create, it's map editor, to create exactly what I needed to make Freeport as accurate to what it looks like in the book as possible. And once I finish Freeport, I'm going to continue to work on, future cities in the book, which are going to require a little bit more topography, I'd say, because Freeport's mostly flat since it's in the coast. But you'll see just really quick here, you have these terrain tools where, you can do basically whatever you need, to literally draw the map that you want, including placing the water wherever you want it, making rivers, things like that. Creating how the water flows in the rivers and everything. So it gives you a lot of control, and that's why I sort of had to pick that, and I wanted to do that is, so that I could really get super specific here with how Freeport looks, because I guess geographically and topographically, it's 99.9% accurate to what I envisioned it in the book. So that's what separates it from SimCity, and that's why I chose it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun, and what's cool is completely unrelated to anything but the game, but it's fun, so whatever, is that you can import, I guess, height maps, like real height maps from locations in the world, and throw those in, and it will actually generate the map based off of like a Google Earth image or something. So you'll actually get the terrain. If you want to do something where you live, you can actually take that height map in and lay it down, and you'll have whatever city you live in. So it's really cool that it allows you to do that.
That's cool. So how do others interact with this? Like, for example, you're building this, and how does somebody else interact with it?
Well, besides watching and enjoying, the watching. Hint, hint. All right. I'll show you here once it loads. I have not. I should mention I have not uploaded the map yet because I don't really want to upload something that everyone's really unhappy with, and meaning unhappy the people in the actual city. I'm going to wait till I flesh it out a bit more. But from the main, you can't do it from. I might as well show you, right? Plenty of episodes to try and finish building this. There's a way, and I will be posting more about this when I do finally upload it. But you can just go ahead and upload your stuff to the Steam Workshop. You can take your content and just post it on Steam for people to download and enjoy. So it's super simple. It'll just be through the Steam Workshop that people can download the save file. You'll see all these different little mods and things that I have. These are all things that I downloaded that people have created. And likewise, you can send the maps and save games. See, all I need to do is click share, and everyone has access to it.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's super easy to do, and that's another reason why I wanted to do this, is to allow people to, I guess, sort of run with it. Learning a lot trying to build Freeport's not gone well, as you can see with everyone moving out. But as I continue to build more cities, what I'm going to do is start sharing them earlier so that people can sort of build their own version. And, ideally I would like to get it to where fans of the book are actually sort of taking the initiative and creating places that they want to see. So that's one thing that I really hope, is that fans will create places, not waiting for me to do that they'll actually create places from the book and share that with others. I think that would be, really cool to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how far along in the writing of the follow-up book are you?
No, go ahead. No.
I was going to say, asking from a reader's perspective, not from a publisher's perspective. I'm not asking you. You have a deadline.
Okay. Yeah. You need to get it out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil too much, but some big changes to the second book, but not changes that would make people who like the first book, unhappy with it. Right. But there's a lot more to it, I will say. But I've finished the complete first write-up, and I've gone through and done the first round of editing. A lot of that was, when you create a fiction work, it's really, really hard to make sure you keep track of like continuity and, story themes, to make sure everything's fitting. When you're doing a really big work like that's set in someplace fictional, you really have to think everything through. So a lot of the revising and editing that I've been doing is to make sure everything is, I guess, in harmony and coherent, so that there aren't any weird little inconsistencies. So I've done the writing is finished. The first round of editing is done to make sure all that's taken care of. And now I'm going back and doing a closer look. Oops, that was a good house. Sorry, just deleted a good one. So that's what I'm working on now. After I do this to make sure everything is in line, then I'm really going to get to the nitty-gritty, actual on a sentence-by-sentence level, to make sure the language itself is what I want it to be. But I'm very close to that, so it's quite far along, I must say.
So do you typically outline the story, or how do you write?
Yeah, keeping track of, obviously, since I've created a whole world, there's a lot to keep track of. I have several documents that I use that I create. That are sort of my cheat sheets. One of them is basically a general history, where I just have a bullet point list of all the important facts, dates, figures, and like names of cities. Like I have the city list that is in the first book, the map. That was actually part of that sort of master list, where I'll just write down all the important information whenever I come across it. Another one is I have a timeline laid out by all the different main characters through all the stories. So it's a table in a Word document, right? So the top is all the different characters, and going down the columns, you progress through the dates. And what I'll do is, as I'm writing or revising, is I will fill in so-and-so did this, and I'll put the date, because there are so many different interweaving stories and things going on that I need to make sure everything is, consistent. So I have just a table document of the entire timeline and what everyone's doing in that. I also have a glossary of terms. So as I write something that might not be, intuitive, I will list that. I also have, let's see, what's the other one? I have basically story themes and ideas that I'm pulling from to keep writing. So basically I have half a dozen documents other than just the book that I'll keep referring to and adding to make sure everything's straight. And that helps me keep the idea straight, and it also helps with idea generation. So it's sort of the way, I would brainstorm or generate ideas, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it does. I'm always curious to know how different writers work, because I know a lot of writers fall into the... maybe it's a trap, I don't know. Because they fall into the trap of just writing off the top of their heads, and the story goes where it goes. Mm-hmm. And I always think that's an okay way to do it for the first draft.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of writers who don't know what a second draft is, which is
it's an important part.
Right. And it's kind of, it can be a little discouraging to hear those words.
Yeah.
Because the completion of a big piece of work feels so good when you're done.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, it's impossible that it can't be finished.
Yeah.
And I'm not always, everybody has always been told, and I was always told, that you will always go back and rewrite the first chapter.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, but it doesn't happen all the time. Mm-hmm. Especially if you know where you're going from the very beginning. And I've found that in my own writing, personally speaking, that when I have had a very strict outline, bullet points of what's going to happen next, mm-hmm. it just comes together very easily because I already know how to write.
Yeah.
So, but it's just knowing where to go next that's the problem for mm-hmm. a lot of writers, and where they kind of get themselves tangled up in their story. But if you know exactly where it's starting, where it's going, and how it's going to end, then really all the hard part is writing it, or the easy part could be writing it, depending on your skill level or your approach.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like the idea of discovery writing, which is basically, you sit down and sort of see where the story takes you. But I also know that you need to plan and you need to look at things critically. So that's why I have all those other documents, is I will say, okay, I see the story going in this direction. Well, suddenly we're reaching maybe this part of the world or this topic that I haven't really touched on before, which makes me sit down and go, okay, well, what happened behind that? So it makes you sort of really critically think about the story around what's going on. And as you do that, as you sort of think more in depth and sort of explore the area, it helps sort of write the story along with it. So you sort of plow forward and explore the story. Then you get to a point where you realize you need to look around what's happened to see why that happened. So you build, everything around it. And then as you build what's around it, that helps you refocus here and continue to take it a little bit farther or a little bit further. If that makes sense at all, so it's discovery, then you explore around that, then you can move forward a little bit more. So you keep sort of moving towards a goal slowly by, taking those first tentative steps and then really building on what's around that, at least for, creating a book set in a fictional world.
Yeah, exactly.
If that, hopefully that makes sense.
It made sense to me.
And I should also mention here these... No, wait, those aren't the ones. These little skull and crossbones mean that apparently people are just hoarding their dead relatives. See, dead person waiting for transport. I always said that they should just sort of stick them in the backyard. But yeah, so we also have a dead body problem in Freeport as of recently. So some sickies here, dead person waiting for transport, and another... Yeah, and I must say, I'm not sure why. You'll see that there's this nucleus of unhealthy dead people.
I hope you're not planning on running for office in real life, because this could be.
Yeah, well, calling everyone idiots and letting them just keep their dead bodies for a while. Like, I think. So, I have all these crematoriums here, but I don't know why it's not. It's like, take your dead bodies and go dump them. I don't know why they're not. I mean, the green, as far as I'm aware, shows coverage area. You'll see that, it shows that those areas are more or less covered. I don't know. Yeah, so for some reason, lots of dead people piling up in Freeport. Didn't really plan that, but I guess apparently it's now a horror story. So, yeah, I guess, spoiler, sequel. Spoiler, the sequel's a horror story. No, yeah, so just part of the game I didn't know I'd have to deal with, that people wouldn't know what to do with their dead bodies, but live and learn, or in their case, die and learn, I guess.
Just don't do zombies. They're overdone.
I'm sure yeah. Maybe there's a zombie mod I could use. That'd be kind of fun. Make everyone turn into zombies. Like, that should have fixed that. Maybe let's throw another hospital. So this is what I meant when I was saying that it's obviously not quite as exact as I was hoping in the book, because in the game, let me see if I can show you an example. You see how that street's gray right there? When you put a building on it, all right, that's the highway. I can't use that. Let me come down here. Okay, so you'll see these are all gray. When you put a building on it, you'll see it turns green, and that shows the coverage area. I didn't realize that I would have to have like a certain density of hospitals and fire departments and things like that to make the game function. So obviously, the placement of those is more based on the game's requirements than how it is in the book itself. But I mean, I can get around that. It's not that big of a deal to have, an extra few hospitals in the city. And especially with the way they look, I was able to download some really cool assets that I think fit the way Freeport should look. So I'm going to see if I can find one here for you. Throw it down somewhere. Let me just find a place to set this. Here we go. And you can see what I mean about the way... I just think the look of it is much, much more appropriate than a generic hospital. So let me... the types of buildings like this is not a stock hospital, but I love the way that looks. I think that fits so much better for Freeport than just a typical modern-looking one, because obviously the book's time period is closer to the 1900s in America than it is, modern days. So I like that I can use some of those. So even if I have to put in more than I planned, they at least look pretty good, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, it looks kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't get rid of all the high-rises, but, I mean, there were more or less some high-rises back then as well, so just, take some creative liberties, I'll say. But a lot of the houses do look pretty good. I'm trying to find some of the smaller, old-school-looking ones, but, I've got some assets that look really good that make it fit. But even so, you at least get the general idea.
Isn't the time frame of End of the Past sort of ambiguous?
Yeah, it's the technology in it. It's similar to the 1900s in that the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, that the rate of increase of technology is going faster and faster than ever before. If you look at the number of inventions per year, if you look at a graph of it, for real life, it pretty much goes like this as you get closer to, our time. And that's sort of what's happening in the time period there is, you're seeing a real sharp increase in inventions. So it is sort of a vague time period because you get a mix of the old and new, and that's sort of what the people themselves are dealing with, is trying to understand the old and the new. So that's why I didn't want it set in a distinct time period, because it's sort of an exploration of, how people react to technology that they might not have had. It's, so much of our lives are based on technology and how we interact with it, that I wanted to sort of explore that too, but maybe not with, say, cell phones and computers, but just in a slightly different way.
Right.
So it's sort of an ambiguous time, but it is a time of rapid growth. If that, that should cover it, I think. Hopefully that makes sense. If, something I'm saying doesn't make sense, go ahead and let me know.
No, I think that's interesting to do that.
Oh, we need power lines. But one thing I will mention, I've said this pretty much every stream, is I hate the way power lines look in the book. I never once mentioned power lines because, for some reason I just don't like to write about power lines. But eventually I want to ditch all of them in the game. You'll see these blue areas. Those are sort of power grids, and you have to take these power lines to connect from power plants, like these power plants here, to make sure obviously the city has power. But you'll see that there's sort of like these vague cloud shapes around the houses. Once an area has power, it connects power to its neighbors. And as things start to grow, you can actually get rid of the power lines because the power is covered just through the area that has power, if that makes any sense. So eventually I will be deleting these power lines because that's the one thing that absolutely drives me the most nuts, is that there are not power lines everywhere in the book, and yet they have to be everywhere in this. So eventually I will be deleting those once the city builds up enough that I can do that. Because no power lines all over the place in the book. And that's super, just an eyesore, I think. Nobody really goes out back and says, those power lines sure make my neighborhood look good.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's kind of the plan in the future. But basically, I'm just doing damage control as I build. I'm trying to add more roads to let it grow, but at the same time, I'm keeping people from holding on to their corpses and abandoning their houses. Because like I said, way too much growth too soon, and people couldn't really handle that. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on now, is taking care of everyone's little whining complaint needs. So yeah, I'm a real good mayor, by the way.
Very good mayor.
Yes.
So how long has it taken you to build it up to this point?
I wonder if so this will be the 9th episode, I'll say, I think. And each episode is about an hour or two long, so 15-20 hours to get to this point. And that does not count the time spent looking for mods that will fit the style, or playing around with the map editor to learn it, because I did practice with the map editor before I started this. So just in this, it's about 15 to 20 hours, not counting all the learning and stuff I had to do before.
Nice.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have a question, but I think it would be cool to get two perspectives for anyone that's interested in starting writing, whether it's professionally or just on their own. Maybe if we each sort of give our opinion on where to start. If somebody who has basically zero experience doing anything professionally, how to get started, anything from generating ideas to actually finding a way to get published. Where would you suggest somebody start, or how do you suggest somebody get started?
Well, with respect to writing, I think that it requires an imagination, of course, and it requires a desire to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really all there is to it. I've always said that, I've said it for the last 16 months, since I've been asked. Somebody asked me once, do you ever turn down books for publication? And, the answer is no, because and that doesn't indicate, that would seem to indicate to some people that, your standards are low.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that if you get a good enough edit on a book, if you have somebody who knows what they're doing, who can edit a book, you can make it readable.
Because we should probably point out that most people who want to are going to have at least some degree of knowledge or skill or ability or opportunity to do. You're rarely going to get anyone who has zero skill or experience who actually wants to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, you may occasionally from somebody who sees the success of certain breakout authors, and there are some authors who go into it strictly from a business perspective, and I forget the guys. There was an author named John Locke, not the John Locke, but another John Locke, who was a very skilled businessman who decided that he was going to try his hand at writing, and he knew how to put sentences together. And I don't think he was much more than a self-professed, mediocre writer.
Yeah.
But he knew a lot of tricks of the trade.
Mm-hmm.
And he managed to get a bunch of bestsellers. And what I learned from that was that it's a lot easier to become a bestseller if you've got more than one book. And if you've got more than 5, that's even better.
Yeah.
Because a lot of readers don't want to take a chance on an author who's only got one book.
Yeah.
Because they want to know that they can go to the next book if they really fall in love with the writing style or the character.
They want to have more to go to.
Yeah, it's just like, if you're a music fan, and who isn't, and you discover a band and you find out they've only got one album in their entire career. For me, knowing that they have a back catalog that I can dive into, or I can start anywhere along the line,
Mm-hmm.
it's more enticing than if they just have one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The same goes for movies, for actors, for directors that people follow, and writers as well. And so this Locke person that I was talking about, what he did was he wrote a bunch of books,
Mm-hmm.
and he self-published them. And, then he went through and he made 1 or 2 or 3 of the books free downloads.
Okay.
So that people could get it for free, determine that they like the book, and then move on to the rest
The next
of the
ones,
series
yeah.
and buy those. And these are, obviously these are Kindle books that became bestsellers, but that's a springboard, toward becoming a successful, author with paperbacks or hardcovers.
Yeah, let me just point out really quick that the police station is on fire.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, well, at least the fire department's close.
Do we know what started the fire?
I don't think it says, but let's blame it on the dead bodies. Too many dead bodies. So that's what we're going to say. So yeah, anyway, continue your story. I just had to point out how funny it is that the police station's on fire.
Wow. So yeah, I don't know. I was rambling about people who go into writing with the desire to make a lot of money. A lot of them are going to be disappointed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I
Because-
think that's good advice for anything. Is that if you go into it for the money, as opposed to loving it, you're going to have a much harder time.
Yeah, and I've come to the sort of the realization that a writer is, if you're a writer and you have a book, the book is not necessarily the commodity. The writer is the commodity.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that that's when you look at the most successful authors in the world, it's the individual that drives the sales, not necessarily the product
The content
itself.
or the plot or even the quality of the book.
Right, because you have a lot of people who harp on, like Stephen King, not knowing how to end a book, which to some would indicate he's not the greatest writer in the world. I beg to differ on that. I grew up with a guy, not literally with him, but I grew up reading him.
There you go.
But yeah, there are a lot of greater authors, but none more successful, and it's name recognition.
Yeah, that's a good
brand.
point. Is creating sort of a brand and a name for yourself as opposed to just trying to make that one perfect story.
Exactly. Stephen King is not. He's an individual, and it's a name, but it's also a term. Say everything went Stephen King.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what that means. It's like synonymous with the Twilight Zone or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't ever like to be negative or talk poorly of anyone, and I'm not going to, but I think a perfect example of that, and again, just totally opinion. This is, completely opinion, not making any, personal judgments or anything, but, Linda and I are both huge fans of the Harry Potter series. I mean, I'm going to say right now, I know that they're not the best written books in the world, but, they're fun. Well, when, her new book came out, the one that was the play, I don't even remember the title, Linda was a fan, so of course she got it from the library, right? Well, she got she has a 40-page rule. If she doesn't like something in 40 pages, she takes it back because she doesn't want to waste her time. Well, I don't even think she made it to 40 pages before she's like, nope, done, and took it back.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't get anywhere near finishing that. And she just knew at once that she didn't like it. And yet that thing's been on however many bestseller lists, I don't know. And I have a feeling that Linda's not the only person that thinks that, but like you're saying, it's the name, right? It's that name associated with it. People care about the person, not just necessarily the content. So I think that's a perfect example of that, is that Linda didn't like what she did. She didn't, no, it was not the play, it was the one she did under a different name. You know what I'm talking about? I wish she was here. I don't know if she came home from work, I'd ask her. I mean, I'm sure that anyone watching this would be like, but I don't know which it is.
I have to confess to never having read her work.
Oh, really?
Or really seeing the movies, actually.
Well, funny you say that. For Christmas this year, I got Linda the box set of books from Costco. They had a matching back cover set that was really cool, and the full movie collection on Blu-ray.
Wow. Yeah,
well, because it's been so long since we both read any of them or have seen the movies, that it's why not? Because they were suddenly selling those, so she's a fan. It's that's a perfect gift. So what she's been doing is reading one, and then we'll watch the movie, then reading one and watch the movie. So it's been a lot of fun. But going back to it is, she didn't like that book, and like I said, I don't remember what it's called. She did it under another name, but she didn't like that, and yet it sold so much because of her name.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact that you thought that they weren't the greatest books ever written, but they're definitely fun.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. Even in movies, they're some of my favorite movies are just.
And let's point out games, since we are playing a game, right?
Exactly. The quality of something can be questionable, but it can also be extremely fun. It's only when it's bad quality and no fun that it really stinks.
Yeah.
But I've read some books, some great books by great writers, and I've hated the books.
Yeah.
Or stopped in the middle, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And then I realized later, well, the book was just no fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
not
every book in the world is going to be fun, but
for every person.
Yeah.
I think that so many people, especially nowadays, because I look at game reviews and go on message boards for books and games and stuff, so I see what people are saying about all the latest releases of whatever, and it's almost always complaints. Let's ignore the fact that it's usually the basement dwellers who are the ones that get on message boards to rant. It's not the average person. But so many people just look for the negative. But what my perspective is that something can be poorly written or poorly designed or poorly programmed. It can have flaws, but as long as there's one part of it that catches you, that's worth continuing through. So let's say the story's terrible, but the language itself is great, you can continue through. Or maybe the setting is so fun that I gotta figure out what's going on with these people. The setting carries it better than, say, the plot. Or maybe the plot is better than the Citizens Are Sick, lovely. Or maybe the plot is better than the actual writing. And if you can find something like that to hold on to, I think that that makes something worth reading or playing or watching. Everything doesn't need to be perfect. You find things that resonate with you on a certain level, and then it's easier to, I guess, overlook the flaws. And it might sound bad saying, ignore the flaws, but really there's nothing wrong with sort of enjoying something even if it's flawed. You know what I mean? Not saying my book's flawed. I mean, but there's nothing wrong with enjoying something that has obvious flaws, if you enjoy it for a certain reason. Whatever, as long as I think you can justify why.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
And that brings, to mind another topic about I think it's important for writers to enjoy the process and to write for themselves as opposed to writing to an audience. I mean,
yeah.
You have to consider the audience when you write a book, but as far as I'm concerned, whenever I write something, I don't really think about too much.
Yeah, you write the story first, right?
Yeah, how it would be received. I write it for myself. I write it so that maybe if my wife likes it, that might be an indicator that it's worth sharing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think when a lot of writers get into trouble is when they try to emulate somebody else's style because they think they're successful, or again, going back to the whole thing about writing for the sake of making money instead of writing for the sake of writing because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Of course, we take all comers. If you just want to make some money and you think we can help you do it,
by all means,
our doors are open.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. And I will be posting links in the video description when I upload this. So if you, internet person, want to make money, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, speaking of writing, I always think it's fun to ask, where do you get your ideas from? That's one of the most fun things to talk about to other writers or just in general is, where do your ideas come from?
A lot of my ideas, it's different for me because I think that I'm at a transitional phase in my writing in my life. The very first book that I finally wrote and finished, which was 4 years ago, was a nonfiction book, and I never thought that I would write nonfiction because I grew up watching Twilight Zone, creature feature on Saturdays, scary movies, George Romero movies, and reading Stephen King books.
There you go, your old buddy.
And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be that, because I enjoy watching it and I enjoy reading it.
Mm-hmm.
But my first book turned out to be a nonfiction book.
That's interesting.
And a nonfiction, not a horror nonfiction. It was just a true story. And that was The American Sons: The Untold Story of the Falcon and the Snowman, which I wrote with Christopher Boyce and Kate Boyce. And really, that was sort of an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Really?
But when I went back to writing afterwards, I wrote a little horror novella called Gnome Way Out. A play on words about killer garden gnomes.
That's certainly not zombies, by the way.
No. And I found that I didn't enjoy it as much.
Really?
As I enjoyed writing the other book. And so I tried
That's interesting.
it again. And I wrote another short story. And that one wasn't as fulfilling either. And then it occurred to me, I said, maybe I'm not supposed to be a horror writer. Maybe I'm supposed to do nonfiction. Or, what's probably even more of a freeing concept is that maybe I can write whatever I want.
Yeah.
If I want to write a romance novel, I'll do that. If I want to write a horror novel, I can do that. You don't necessarily have to stick with one genre. Although to get to really gain success, you really do have to sort of find your niche.
Yeah, find what. At least if you want to make money off it and publish it.
Yeah, if you're just sort of scattershot and you're all over the place with different styles of books, you may not appeal to a very loyal fan base. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But
so you basically just sort of got your ideas through, I guess, almost accident. It sounds like you tried to brute force something, and something else just seemed to work better.
And I still get ideas, and I think a lot of my ideas, and again, all the ideas that I get are kind of Twilight Zone-y because that's what shaped my brain when I was that age.
Yeah, I should put a real quick plug in that I hadn't read it ever until you suggested it last September or October at the book signing.
Yeah.
But Dracula.
Yeah.
Thanks to your suggestion, that was my Halloween book for last year, and that was, I just want to, complete random, but Oh, I love that. I don't know why I read Ray Bradbury and some other, really good classic horror, but I'd never touched that before. And I'm really glad you pointed that out because that was a lot of fun to read. I love that.
Yeah, and a friend of mine told me, my best friend read it like 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And for months harped on me and said, you have to read this book. You'll really like it. And, when somebody tells me that and they won't leave me alone, then I don't want to read it. So it turned me off to the idea of reading the book. And I don't know what it was, why it was that I picked up Dracula at the time that I did.
Yeah.
But I read it, and I thought it was one of the best books I'd ever read. Not only from the story, obviously, itself.
Yeah.
But the way the book was structured.
Yes, that's one big thing I took away from that is that and this. I mentioned this before, but I'm really big on setting. And that's how I am with games. Is the location is as important to me as anything else, and I loved the setting for that book in the way that it was described. How real it felt and the specific environment. That's one of the things that really captured me.
And one of the really cool things too about that book was that Bram Stoker never set foot in Romania.
Really, I didn't know that.
Or if he did, he didn't. He wasn't in the specific place where he was described in the very beginning of the book.
Yeah,
Transylvania,
with the mountains and the snow and the peaks, and
they didn't have Google Earth back then, obviously, and so he just sort of, and he probably didn't have a budget either, so he couldn't go there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I learned that, and then I saw the way that he structured the book, from Jonathan Harker's diary entries to letters from his fiancée to journal entries by the doctor, and they all kind of combined to tell
the doctor was really interesting.
And I think that's the thing that I took away most from the book was the structure and his approach. Because nowadays I cannot read a book without studying it to see how it's. I'm even looking at the fonts and I'm looking at the spacing of the words.
It's broken you, has it?
Yeah, I'm damaged. So I could never read for fun anymore. But yeah, that book is very instructional in that way. And so I think that because I was sort of studying it, the story and the emotional impact of the story blindsided me.
Yeah.
When you watch a Dracula movie, you don't tear up over somebody dying. But
like Nosferatu or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the book, it's really emotionally impactful. And so, and I found that I read that book right before I started writing my book, American Sons. And I realized halfway through the writing of the book that I was using Dracula as a sort of like the blueprints. I wrote about things in American Sons that I couldn't go see, like the inside of a prison. I relied on.
Well, you could go see it. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that I actually could have gone probably and maybe written letters and said I'd like to get into this place where my protagonist was actually in. Yeah. Because he's not going to go back and show me around. He's just never going to go back. So I had to rely on his words to describe those things. But then I sort of put myself in the mindset. I did a lot of research online about solitary confinement in federal prisons and things like that, and what it looked like. Yeah. And again, I felt okay about it because I knew that Bram Stoker had never been in Transylvania. So that gave me permission to do that.
Yes. Well, yes. Let's also point out that two sides of that coin. On the one hand, J.K. Rowling's never been to Hogwarts. But on the other hand, everything you see in your mind, you've been there as much as you've been anywhere else in the world. So, you have two sides to that, right? Where most people really haven't been everywhere they could be for a book. But at the same time, you can be somewhere in your head as clearly as you can be somewhere in your seat, right?
Right.
And that
Exactly.
This is a perfect example right here. Is I've never been to Freeport, but look, you and I and everyone else, we're in Freeport right now. Though
Right.
there are a lot more dead bodies in abandoned houses, but we'll just kind of ignore that for a little bit. Eventually, there won't be so many dead bodies.
Is there a scratch and sniff card that goes with this?
Yeah, try scratching your screen really hard and see what comes out.
Maybe not dead body smell, but let's not go there. Anyway.
Well, actually, that's funny that you mention it. Is you'll see that you actually have to worry about water in this. You have to make sure, obviously, everyone has water. And let's see. You see, it shows where the water is flowing. Well, I made a mistake when I first built this, and the water just sort of stopped right here. And the intake and outtakes, like the sewage intake and outtakes, were in the same spot. So we had some real bad, dirty chocolate water problems feeding the whole city. So everyone was massively sick for a while until I figured out how to stop it. So yeah, Freeport had big poo water problems for a while in this. I want to say that was like 3 episodes ago.
Wow. I've never even seen that in a horror movie.
No, well, you can see what it looks like. So the brown, this is the pollution water. But I figure that this is the industrial district up here. And then obviously the rest of the transport docks. Any port city you go to, the water isn't clean for swimming. So I just sort of figure that's more realistic, honestly, having all the pollution right there. But when it was coming out of the river drinking water, yeah, some poo water problems were a little much. So it was a really stupid mistake, but I was able to figure it out, luckily.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, well, good for them. Not that that seemed to help, given all the dead bodies still.
I should also point out that I probably should have pointed this out earlier. I'm not just in my PJs. I'm actually dressed in the official garb of Glass Spider Publishing, which is...
oh, cool. I didn't even see that.
The T-shirt. Glass
Merch.
Spider Publishing.
I need book merch. I didn't even know you had a shirt like that. I'll have to grab one.
We're doing them through Zazzle because really, we did it originally. My wife did it because she said, "Wouldn't it be cool to have a T-shirt, a mug?"
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you guys have a gallery. It only makes sense, right?
Right. But initially, it was just not for public consumption or anything like that.
Yeah.
Don't consume T-shirts.
Well, if they're scratch and sniff T-shirts, those would be some real tasty T-shirts.
But so the thing about it is that Zazzle does some really good stuff, and you can do it easily. I like it better than Cafe Press, but it's expensive.
Oh, really?
And if you're the one who designs it, you don't get a discount on it. So, but it is sometimes a lot. It's a lot less of a headache than to go through like a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Store, shop, and have it made. So yeah, if you would like to own an awesome shirt like this, I think they're like $25 or something.
Okay.
And you can get the link through glassspider.com.
And why don't you actually go ahead? Nope, finish that.
It's glassspiderpublishing.com/swag. And
that's a much better URL.
And bear in mind, the T-shirts run large. I got myself an extra large, and I'm swimming in it. So,
well, I guess if you need, Linda and I actually were talking. We need a new set of summer sheets for a king size bed. So, looks like put me down for a medium. Right?
Yeah, that'll cover it.
Yeah. Actually, send me later on. Send me a link, and I'll put a link to that in my website. So that if anyone's interested, on your Glass Spider page on the website, I'll link it.
Okay, yeah.
So I think... go ahead.
I was going to say I just did it because I ran out of cool T-shirts.
Well, it is almost my birthday, so I'm hoping that Linda comes through on the cool T-shirts. Because every time I stream, I try and wear something, Can you see? Fun. There you go. My Star Wars shirt. I have a bunch of Star Wars shirts, so I could add that to the... cast of shirt characters.
Yeah, I have an Empire shirt. I
nice.
Believe. Maybe it's Star Wars.
Speaking of which, no Rogue One spoilers. I haven't seen it yet.
How is it that I've seen it and you haven't?
I don't know. I know what it is. We got December, January, we were all so sick that we didn't do anything. You know, my grandma ended up in the hospital. I couldn't hear out of my right ear for 2 weeks. You know, everyone was super sick. And by the time we got better and things just got busy, it was out of theaters. That's, I think, how we missed it.
Yeah, I haven't been to the theater in probably a couple of years.
Well, get ready for a lot more cell phones than there used to be.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, it really wouldn't bother me so much. Cell phones don't bother me nearly as much as talking.
That's what milk duds are for.
Yeah, and I really wish that, you know, movie theaters would allow you to wear, you know, would have, maybe some of them do. I don't know.
Whoa! Look at that bus stop. What's going on over there?
I think it's a zombie invasion.
That is a what? Dag, no, did I just delete that? Okay, I'm reloading. I accidentally deleted that bus line and it just pissed everyone off. Whoops.
Or is it's an exodus. They're all lining up.
Yeah. They're the cultists, the neighborhood cultists. There's some sort of asteroid about that they're about ready to go visit. Well, at least I know my public transportation's working pretty well.
Clearly.
So, really quick before we wrap it up for the night, let me just do a quick highlight of some of the areas from the book, and then I think we will wrap this up. And when I post this on YouTube for everyone watching it later, relevant links will be in the video description down that way. And feel free to point, down too, so that we have there you go. See, super down. Yeah, where he's looking. So, feel free to take a look. Oh, hey, Vaughn's house just got built. Cool. That perfect timing. So this right here at the last house on the farthest row of the oldest part of the city is Vaughn's house. And it even looks kind of cool, too. So that is where the main character lives. This is where his father is buried in this old cemetery. It's the abandoned cemetery. Let's head out. I know I'm swinging around, but it's kind of hard to do the views. So this is leaving his neighborhood. So this is basically the view he sees looking down some of the main streets for the really crowded city. You'll see that his little neighborhood is nestled back in one of the quiet, pretty areas with the hills. And that's actually a really pretty shot with the sun setting, I think. Yeah, it's quite lovely. So we're going to head over to the main port street that runs along the western seaboard, where a lot of the shops and the docks are. And never mind that ship is crushing everyone by going on the land. That's totally a thing in the book. Just, that always happens.
Right.
Boats tend to... Let's see if that one's going to get a little landlocked. Oh, playing chicken. Good thing they can't crash. So we're nearing the capital. So Freeport is the capital of the Freeport province, which means that it's basically like Washington, D.C. to... the U.S. where the capitals, the big capitals are, and we're coming up to that now. We're heading north. So if for any of you that have the map in the book or go to Disparia.com, you can see the map. We're heading north along the coast in Freeport, up to where the Capitol buildings are. You see, this is the provincial offices and the courthouse off the docks here. So all of these are the the legal buildings and everything. So that's where that doesn't feature a lot in the first book. That's more in the second book. I mean, that's not really spoiling anything saying that. But here's the Freeport River, which drains from above the cliffs to the northeast corner of the cliffs. This whole area here is the industrial district where most of the shipping, because obviously this is one of the biggest shipping the biggest port cities on the whole continent, so it's super busy. So it has a really big industrial district. Jonas's Bar, I don't really have a good analog for it, so I just had to use that. But this here near the main intersection, the highway intersection, oh, there it is. Right here is where Jonas's Bar is, the tall cylindrical building. So that features heavily in the book. That's almost smack dab in the middle of the city. Over here is the Parks District. I still need to do more work and flesh this out. But this is the northern half, or the northern third with the lake and the trees. This is where all the recreational fields are, which feature in the book. And down here is where the parks and the gazebos and the gardens are, or I should say will be. So that's where some of the main features of the book are. The east gate that's mentioned is right there out of the highway. And here's another residential district up in the northeast corner. This whole area up here. And the main marketing districts are next to the Parks District and all in this area. So that's just sort of a quick, I guess, helicopter overview of what Freeport looks like. You know, here's, say, looking at the Parks District from the road. So it gives you a really cool feel for, you know, what you can picture it in the book. I should mention that they talk about a line of cafes and buildings that they see somewhere in the middle of the book along the Park Road, and that would be these buildings right here that they go to. So, you know, it's fun to sort of visualize that in a clear... Oh, looks like we have a traffic jam. So it's fun to, you know, visualize that in a clearer way. So that's just the quick overview of Freeport from the book.
Thank you for that tour. That was the fastest full city tour I've ever had. But it seemed...
That's what happens when you can fly, you know, Mach 3.
Right. And I'm not even sick.
Well, that guy is. Yep, that guy's sick right there. I don't know why, but he can just go ahead and deal with it. Because I'm kind of tired of all of them whining about being sick and their dead bodies. So, well, I think that will. I think that will go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. Like I said, you can take a look at all of the links and information we talked about in the video description below. And we do plan on trying to make these a more regular thing, maybe, you know, 2, 3, 4 times a year, once every quarter or something, turning them sort of like a live podcast, so to speak. So, you know, do look for something like this more in the future. And if you do have any questions for any of us, you can find the links to all of my Disparia books links, as well as Glass Spider links on the channel page here on Twitch, or again, the video description. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments or get a hold of us through the many methods of social media. Vince, do you have a preference?
I don't care what you call me, just call me.
Yep, there's that.
I guess I should say, I don't care how you call me, just call me.
Okay, well, you know, since I found out that whole Twitter thing, that's actually working pretty well for me. So that's where I post most of my immediate updates. But you can get a hold of me through the website or Facebook or anything, and it's all at Disparia Books, so just to make it easy. So is there anything else you would like to close with before we finish the stream?
Well, you know, I was drinking water throughout the show in this glass, and I realized I have a Glass Spider Publishing mug that I should have been...
A little shameless promotion.
I'm kind of upset at myself, so maybe next time.
Oh, well, I was going to say that now you're sponsored by Adult Diapers because you just said you polished off the whole glass, but that went a completely different direction, so glad it went your way, not mine.
Now you're thinking about smart branding there.
Yes, for those 24-hour no-break streams, Twitch brand Adult Diapers. Ping. This is where my eye would glisten if I was doing some post-production, right?
Right.
So... Okay, well, you know, thanks for joining me on episode, I think it's 9 of Building Freeport. I will be back to my regular schedule, not next week because it's my actual birthday and Memorial Day, but starting in June, I will be back to a regular Tuesday schedule, and you guys can join me for my weekly Kerbal streams as well, where I'm continuing to beta test Evolution, the most comprehensive Kerbal mod ever. Sparkle, sparkle. So... yeah, I appreciate you joining me. Thanks for taking time out on your Friday. It's actually, you know, a lot of fun talking about writing and books and movies and stuff. So we definitely need to make this a more regular thing and, you know, continue to bring people in to ask questions. Again, thank you, Pika and Toxic, for, you know, some of your questions earlier. So, you know, I think it was a lot of fun, and we will definitely plan on doing this again.
Absolutely. Now, before we go, can we do one thing?
Probably. Remember, I didn't click that little inappropriate for young audiences button, so...
No. Just when I say it, look up, and I'm going to look down because it's going to look funny on the screen.
Oh, it's Brady Bunch.
Right. Look. I'm looking down. You look up.
Hey. Okay, I see. So this is how they did it in the Brady Bunch, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been just wanting to do that the whole time.
Okay, well, really, really lame things are probably what I built my stream off of, so... Yeah, okay, well, again, I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me, and we will go ahead and do this again next time. You can look for more information on when we might do it again on DispariaBooks.com, Facebook, or Twitter, either Glass Spider Publishing or Disparia Books. So be sure to check them all out, and I appreciate everyone joining us. So have a good weekend, everyone.